the universe exists as these opportunities, these potentialities for us, but we do not perceive them until we start to see what is really there.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Soul Sessions. We are so excited to be here. I'm Deborah Maldonado. I'm here with Dr. Rob Maldonado.
Good to be here.
And this is a continuation of our series. What are we talking about, Rob?
We're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset. Easy for me to say, but just one point, it's not just for entrepreneurs. Everyone needs to understand how the mind plays into this mindset of success, of creativity, entrepreneurship.
And so before we begin and dive into this topic, I just want to make a quick reminder that if you are watching us on YouTube and would like to subscribe to our channel, just click on the button here in the corner. If you are listening to us on our podcast, on one of the podcast services, we invite you to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. So today we're talking about how the mind creates opportunities, or how opportunities are created in our life. Where do they come from, and how does that work with the mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So last time we talked a little bit about this idea that we can learn these skills, all these skills that psychology has identified as important for the entrepreneurial mindset, are teachable, are learnable, are definitely doable.
We have it in us. We just haven't used that skill.
Yes. Nobody teaches us these things unless we seek them out, unless we study them. And so it's important to understand this, that you're not, the entrepreneur, the successful person is not necessarily born, but they're made, they're kind of cultivated and developed.
They're self-made?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into this idea of where do opportunities come from? Why do some people appear to have more opportunities than others?
It seems like some people say they have good luck.
Yeah.
There was like a lucky break. Everyone wants that lucky break.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to that. Of course, if you're born into a wealthy family and you have you go to the right schools and have the right connections, of course, it helps you out. But we're talking about kind of the level playing field where we all start off going to public schools, kind of finding our way through these meaningless jobs and things that we have to do as we're growing up. And then we kind of start to wake up and get this idea that maybe I want to work for myself.
Or I want to do something different. This is not something I really want to do. A good example of this is a friend of mine. We worked in an ad agency, and her husband was a high-tech guy, computer programmer, and he was like, I don't want to do this. So he left his high-paying job to become a teacher. Right. And it was like low pay, but he was so excited. Happy. Now, that's not entrepreneurial, but he was thinking, I want to do something that, leaving the traditional, rational thing and doing what he loved. And I thought that was so brave of him to do. Yeah,
that's definitely a part of it. But also, a lot of people don't think of artists, writers, painters, filmmakers as entrepreneurs, but that's really what they are. They're entrepreneurs, meaning they are making their own way in the world.
Like even actors, they have celebrities. They're celebrity as a company in a sort of way where they have income and they have a brand and all those things.
And they create their own opportunities. That's the creative mindset. So let's back up a little bit and kind of look at the playing field. Not the social playing field and not the political playing field, but just this idea of we're in this world. What is this world made out of? And it's important to back up that far because if we don't understand how the universe works, or we don't have a good model of it, let's say, then we're always on the wrong track. We're wasting our energy We're thinking that we're failing because of reasons that aren't really there or don't really exist. So understanding the field that we're playing in is important. And really, at the most fundamental level, the universe is an infinite universe. It's an infinite universe. And if you're a scientist, check it out. Look at what physics and quantum mechanics says about the universe. It appears to be infinite, essentially. There are no limitations.
The new telescope that the Webb telescope is showing us parts of our physical reality that are really beyond mind-blowing. Billions of universes, billions of galaxies. Not universes. Well, I guess it could be that way, but the idea that this expansiveness is if that is what's happening out there, there's also parts that we can't see that beyond the senses that are there too, but we just can't. Most people can't see them.
Yes, so that's looking outward. And looking inward, we know from consciousness studies, from ancient wisdom traditions, it's the same thing. It's an infinite inward space, inward mind or consciousness. It has no limits. It's infinite. So we are essentially playing in this infinite space. Now, what does that mean for an entrepreneur in practical terms? Because people always ask us, tell me something practical.
What can I use?
And this is actually very practical because, again, if you don't understand the playing field, you're playing with the wrong rules.
Yeah.
You're assuming the rules are different.
Mm-hmm.
So in an infinite universe, what is possible? Anything that you are able to hold your mind steady on. In other words, the vision that you can create and you can hold on to in your mind is what's possible for you.
And the fact that you have the vision or desire, where does that come from? It comes from a deeper part of ourselves. It's not coming from outside. It's coming from within you, a desire for something. So when we say we live in this infinite universe, for most of us, Rob, we don't really feel like we're living in an infinite universe. We feel like there's rules, we have bills to pay, there's only a certain amount of people that we can match up with romantically, or what our body limitations are as far as aging, and how much money we can make because we're in a certain social class or education level or experience level. And so we have all these rules that tell us the opposite of this idea that things are infinite. So what is that? And you and I were talking earlier, it's as if we live in a bubble of our own conditioned mind that covers up the infinity, and we see just our own limitations. It's like instead of rose-colored glasses, we have dark-colored glasses on, and we're only seeing very, very small pieces of what's possible because we've trained our mind to prune everything in and just focus on what we need to survive in the world. We're that's the way we were designed to survive, and it's a natural process to be like that, but that's not the end of our story. But for most people, they think that's the end of their story.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What we perceive as individuals is really our own assumptions that we've gathered through our personal experiences. And so in all practical purposes, we are seeing our own reflection when we look at the world.
So when we see limitation out there, we're actually seeing the bubble, the edge, like it's a mirror, versus there's really an absolute out there. It's mirroring what we believe, and sometimes not, most of the time, not even conscious of our limitations.
Yeah, so test this out. Look at your current situation and try to identify the opportunities available to you. Mm-hmm. If those opportunities appear to be limited, appear to be small, appear to be non-existent maybe, that's reflecting your deepest assumptions about who you are and what your reality is.
And
Now, the good news is you can change that. You're not set. We're not set in that mindset. That's simply, like you were saying, the conditioned mind, right? It serves a purpose because it helps us survive and it helps us fit in socially, but it's not reality. It's essentially our default reality.
It's almost like a herd mentality that like our culture, our family, our environment shapes us as we grow up and tells us what's possible for us. For some people, what's possible as a woman, what's possible as a certain race, what's possible in a certain income level, what's possible with a certain education level, whether you're attractive or not, that can weigh, or how smart you are. We're told basically, or we just think we're a certain way, and that we get a lot of influence from the people around us. And so a lot of our assumptions aren't things we made up, but they're things we absorbed from our environment. So it's not to blame yourself. It's just the natural way we're kind of conditioned as human beings. And so the first step is to see that all the limitations in the world out there that I see, that they're arising from me. And that if we could start, and not to blame yourself, but to say, okay, well, if they're arising in me, that means I have an opportunity to change it, versus it's their fault and it's not my fault, and just this is the way things are.
Yes. So what we talk about, when we talk about individuation, that's what we mean. Individuation is the process of breaking through those barriers of self or of limited conditioning, of mental conditioning. It's a psychological process that allows you to see what is beyond your limited mindset. And as we take people through the individuation process, they actually start to see opportunities that really have always been there, because again, the universe exists as these opportunities, these potentialities for us, but we do not perceive them until we start to see what is really there.
And they're there right now, and you won't, even if you're sitting next to the love of your life, if you're not open to receive that you wouldn't even notice that person. You wouldn't even have a feeling. Actually, one woman I knew back in the day, my book signing in Denver for my first book, she had been friends with this guy for 20 years. And she says she read my book and it just kind of opened up her mind. And she's like, oh my God, the love of my life has been with me, next to me. I've been looking. And it's like your mind needs to purify itself from that past conditioning to be able to see those opportunities. So I always say it's like a thin veil. The things you want and the things you want to create and the opportunities, it's like a very thin veil. Think of the thinnest, most sheerest curtain. But your mind is blocking you from seeing it because you're basing it on old assumptions. And what I love about the individuation process is that the more you individuate, the more you'll be able to create on opportunities, and the more you stay stuck in your old patterns, the more limited your life will be. I mean, it's a simple choice. Do you want to grow, or do you want to stay stagnant in old beliefs, old ideas, old limitations, and we're not even talking about what you think, but it's really like who you are. It's not changing the way you think or feel as much as changing who is the person that's creating. Am I the ego, or am I something greater? And I think that's individuation, is not identifying as the ego anymore, and the curtains it throws over the world, and start to see things as they truly are.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the idea of relationships as in a conversation about entrepreneurship, but there was a famous millionaire recently that said something similar. He said the most important choice you will make that plays into whether you're successful or not is who you marry.
Warren Buffett said that.
Yes.
Billionaire, one of the richest men in the world. He said the most important decision you'll make in your life is the person you choose to marry. Because it's really that partnership. I mean, I know for me, when I was a solopreneur and then you and I started working together, things started to shift in a bigger way, because it's a creative process. It's this battery that is happening. But so how do we start to see these possibilities if the shade, the shades are on and we're, in a dark room? Rumi says, why do you close your eyes, cover your eyes and cry that it's dark? Like we're covering our own eyes. And so how do we start to see, Rob, outside of the bubble? Well, one of the things about the bubble that's interesting is that it's also reflective of our collective nature. Like it shows possibilities, but it shows them in other people. And every possibility, that can be more than, there's more than what we can see, but the initial, if you look at the world, there's successful people, there's unsuccessful people, there's people who have great relationships, there's people who have bad relationships, there's people that are healthy and people that aren't. And so we're seeing like a variety, and all of them are reflections of what's possible for us. So for me, when I first started, or the idea, I first started thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, the first thing is choose someone who is influential in your life. So I used to read self-help books, and I used to, go to workshops, and some of my friends were doing workshops and healing and all that. And I was like, wow, this is really cool that you can do this for a living. They planted the seed for me. They planted, but in my mind, I didn't think I was a teacher. I was more of a student. And I had to start with that if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. And so look at someone in your life that has the things you want. They are a piece of that potential, and you could probably even reach higher potentials than that person. But I think it's easy just to find someone that you can look up to, a mentor or someone that you feel like, wow, I'd love to change the world like this person. And that is in you already. So that's a part of the way you start piercing that veil and start seeing your identity beyond just what you personally experienced. And you start to feel connected that if these other people can experience, I have that too. Like I am just like them.
Yeah, that's a good way to start, whether you're young and starting out or you've reached the point where you've decided to start your own business, your own practice, et cetera, et cetera. It's a good idea to find mentors and to choose who your influences are.
And a mentor is different than a coach. It could be the same, but a mentor is someone who has the experience or the experience that you want to have, that have already maybe gone a couple steps through the challenges and that can kind of help you light the way. Like a guide, a tour guide that takes you on a beautiful tour of a jungle. You want someone who's been there before versus you trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the choosing of your influences is an important piece, because you're literally now starting to create and consciously choose who you are going to be, how you're going to show up for your life. And that requires some thinking. If you talk to any successful person in any field that you're interested in, there's some common denominators. One of them is that they actively study, they actively read, they actively kind of seek out, what does it mean to be successful in my field? They understand exactly what they need to do. And
they're hungry for it, and they enjoy learning about it. And they're not just learning just enough to get just enough. They're actually, the process of learning itself is powerful. Like for me, when I was, I first started out, I didn't have a lot of female people that were executives that had careers. They were mostly secretaries or nurses. That was like our choices back in the 80s for me and my society and where I lived and the kind of the family I grew up in. And when I started working in New York City, I started seeing all these women executives. I mean, my boss was the senior vice president, corner office, and I thought, wow, there's women can take these roles. When I was younger, it was all the men in the offices and all the women doing the secretarial work. And so when we start to step into that power, we represent something and can shine a light for people that give them permission even to go for their dreams. So if we all stay stagnant and all feel like it's not enough and we stay in our little bubbles, no one grows. So our growth, if we escape the bubble, even your bubble of friends, you might have to escape that bubble to go for your dreams. You are inspiring the people around you. You're lighting the light for them. And for me, you know, I think about all the influences in my life, and it's different than admiring, like putting them on a pedestal. You don't want to like project too much onto them, but you want to see, oh, they're showing me the way. I know I can do that too. Not they're so great and I need to follow them like a guru. It's more they're showing me how to do it, and you kind of have a more realistic. How would you talk about that, Robin? Like kind of projecting your own power onto that other person, like they're greater than you. You want to see them as yourself.
Yeah, there is a identification with these individuals, meaning that you see them as being role models for you. That just the way they're doing their life and their art and their science, whatever they're doing, that you can do it as well, and that your aim is to emulate them. So, you know, Newton said, "I'm standing on the shoulders of giants," and that's what we're doing. We're finding these giants that we can say, they're going to prop me up. Their example is a way for me to create my own life, my own business, my own path.
And maybe not even you do it exactly their way, but you see the possibility.
Yeah.
That because if no woman ever ran a company, if we were back in the early days, like very, very few women ran companies, I would never think of becoming a businesswoman. I would not really enter my mind. And do what I do. If no one was an entrepreneur, everyone would just assume you just get a job. That's just what you do. So when you step out and you do something different and new and creative, you are giving other people that inspiration. And so the third element of this mindset and opportunity is, again, what's outside this bubble, Rob, or beyond the bubble?
Yeah, so once you start to become successful or step into that success mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, really what starts to happen is that you're drawing inspiration in a very literal way from what Jung called the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, we can think of it as the source of creativity, the source of important ideas that come and become what we call culture. It becomes what we call human society. They are derived from the unconscious mind, from this deeper well of inspiration that is the collective unconscious.
And so how do people tap into that? Very carefully.
Very carefully. And like you were saying, we need guides, we need teachers, we need coaches to help us do that. Because what it is, it's finding your own source of creativity, your own source of inspiration. And that has to come from within. So in the beginning, right, or in that stage where you're finding mentors and emulating people, that's fine. But what is happening is that you're learning to observe that they are original thinkers. They are kind of finding their own inspiration from within themselves. So now you have to do that. You have to find the source within you. And that requires that introspection, that self-reflection, that ability to dive deep within you. And that's the process of getting in touch with the collective unconscious. We do it through dreams. We do it through visualization, through vision, through writing, through journaling, through yoga. Many, many ways we see individuals tap into this source. But it's something that's very human. It's something that has existed since the beginning of time. Any culture you study, any period of time you study, there were always individuals who were able to do this and to bring forth the important ideas that transform their cultures, their societies for the better.
And so, so the biggest takeaway for today is to think about that we live in an infinite universe. And then the reason why we don't experience that in our life and we have a lot of setbacks or perceived limitations is because we have this bubble of our conditioning that's clouding our perception based on our assumptions of what is there. The last episode we talked about cognitive dissonance, cognitive bias, that we can't even see it. There's actually a psychological study where they had a bear run across, the guy in the bear suit or something run across, and no one noticed it until someone pointed it out. So it's like these things are right there, but we can't see them. And so this is based on scientific research. They know that we're not perceiving the world as detailed and fully as we think we are. We're seeing bits and pieces. And so the more we individuate, the more we step out of our old conditioned patterns, the more we stop identifying with our ego and start really waking up to who we really are, that's when we're going to start to enable, access the collective unconscious and work through, have the tools of universal forces to help us create in ways that we can't even imagine. And so, and this isn't really, I just want to say, this isn't about becoming a millionaire or, doing, achieving some big goal so you get an award. This is really about you getting in touch with your own creative nature. Like the whole idea of the joy of creating and not feeling confined anymore, but just like an artist, like being able to draw what they want or sing what they want. You want to create the life that fills you with joy. So it's not manifesting money or manifesting things. It's about the joy of creating as you really are.
Excellent. So join us next time because we're going to be talking more about the personality traits that make up a successful creative entrepreneur.
Yes. So we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and talk to you soon. Take care.